I sometimes feel being a librarian, it's a wee bit like being a hairdresser or a bartender. Like, in old movies where you've got the bartender cleaning the glass and they're listening to people's problems. There's an element of it that's not so much the actual job I'm doing for the person, but just that I'm there in a moment where they're stressed and they need to be kind of calmed down, or just have a person who listens to them that cares.
Hi friend, I'm Lauren Jean. I'm a thinker, babbler, lover of stories and founder of Thinking of Me. Welcome to our first season of Women Only Speakers, where we talk all things empowerment, success, relationships, and above all else, self. I hope you might find a new thread of thought as you listen.
And welcome to today's podcast episode with Caroline Montgomery. I have today, welcome to Thinking of Me podcast, Caroline.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It's great. We're actually here in a theatre space as we prepare for Tech today for Playboy the Western World with Sanford Little Theatres. So it's great to get the space. It's great to time, and thanks so much, as I say, for coming on. I know this feel a bit nerve-wracking sometimes, and for friends listening, as you listen to podcasts or watch this, whether it's one or both, I know as myself, as someone who enjoys being the other side, as I say, from listening and watching, it's so insightful, and there's a lot to learn and take from it. So, and then I know being this side, it feels really nerve-wracking.
I feel kind of like I'm on the Drew Barrymore show or something. We're going to start like plugging. Okay. Good morning, Dublin.
Well, we can pretend we're wherever we like. That feels really privileged of me to have that comparison. So as we say, today we're in the month of November and we're getting ready for show. And Caroline, I'm really excited because I think you're very interested in humour, and I wouldn't have asked you on if I didn't. And I won't even give any introductions as to who you are. I'll let you kind of jump in if you're okay with that.
I'm Caroline Montgomery, and by day I am a librarian, and by night I am an amateur theatre actor. So that's essentially who I am. So I currently work in an academic library, which I really enjoy. So I've kind of bounced around a bit career-wise. I initially found my way in librarianship because I was a student at the time. I was doing an arts degree with this kind of vague idea that I was going to be a primary school teacher or maybe a secondary school teacher. But it wasn't necessarily that I had a grand plan. It was more one of those things that, like, growing up, people were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I felt like I never had a good answer. Just said teacher, almost like a default. Because I was like, I can't. But I never really knew. And I didn't have necessarily a huge desire to be a teacher. It was just like, I have to answer that question. So that was the plan. But I had actually applied to the Marino Institute of Teaching. That was my first CAO top choice. And then arts degree was underneath that. But I remember, like, that whole summer when you're kind of waiting for your results, I was actually nearly nervous that I'd get my first choice, because I was like, is this even like that? I don't even, am I right to be doing primary school teaching? Is that what I want to do? I don't know. So when I got arts degree, I was actually kind of relieved, because that meant it was a bit more open. And once I got into college, I actually loved college. I went to UCD. And I just loved the whole college experience. I got really into it, like what they'd call now like college core, or that kind of dark academia. I just loved being at college, like walking around in the autumn with like my big coat and a stack of books. I just loved the whole idea of it, and I made great friends. I was just enjoying the whole thing, the whole experience, and I loved being in the library studying. I was one of those people who would stay. Now, this is partly because I'm old, so it's the early days of Wi-Fi connections. So I didn't have a great Wi-Fi connection where I was living in my apartment, so it made sense to stay in the library. So that was part of the reason I was in there all night, but also I just kind of liked it. I found my wee comfy place. I had a desk that I liked, so I'd get in there early, stay in my desk, and like stay there all day. But so I guess I enjoyed being a student in a library before I enjoyed the idea of working in one. And I made some great friends. I was doing a broad arts degree, but then I did quite well in English. So they offered me, for going into second year, they offered me a place in what they call Mode 1 English, which is just doing English as a pure subject major. So you just focus on English. You do medieval English, Old English, 17th century poetry, all these different modules in English. So I did that, and I ended up in this really small class group, and we had this real close-knit class group. And like we say even now, like those were the best days, because honestly, what it felt like was that we were just in this like very elite little clique club. And, like, it didn't feel like work most of the time. Like, we were working, we were doing assignments and essays, but like it felt a lot like we were just kind of hanging out chatting about books. So it was like, let's go to our tutorial, like our own little group of friends, like chatting about medieval books or whatever it was. So it was really nice, especially on Fridays. Fridays were always, we had this big 2-hour lecture and then we all went for lunch. So the Mode 1 group, they were my little group of friends from college, and I'm still in contact with them. A lot of them have moved on and had babies and whatever, so I don't see them as often.
Yeah.
But we're still friendly, you know, we still have WhatsApp chat. So that was college. But while I was in college, I had a summer job the year between second and third year in the Dundalk Public Library, because Dundalk's my hometown. And that was an initiative that was run by the County Council at the time. The Louth County Council had this initiative where if you were in your penultimate year of university, there was this kind of internship you could do. And you would interview for the internship and then they placed you in some department. And I think I had said, when they said, what would you ideally like to work in? I said, I kind of like the idea of working in the library. And they put me in the library. So I was in the public library, but I could have easily ended up in, say, the urban planning department or some other county council place, but I'm glad I ended up in the library. So when I was there, I did a lot of work, particularly with kids. And there was this readathon called the Big Readathon, Big Tree Readathon, or whatever. And it had this huge, we had to make a big, huge paper tree. And the idea was that we cut out lots of little green paper leaves and the kid would write like their book review on the little leaf and then stick it to the tree.
I remember doing that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah. So I loved that kind of stuff. And my manager in the public library at that time was the person who said to me, you know, you can actually do a postgraduate qualification in librarianship and do this as a career. And that's where I got the idea to do that, because I'd been kind of just vaguely bouncing around going, maybe I'll be a teacher, maybe I'll be something else until that. So that's when I decided to go again to UCD, because at the time that was the only place you could do what they call the MLIS, which is Masters in Library and Information Studies. So I went to UCD and did that master's qualification. And that's how I found my way into librarianship. So, but then the recession hit. So stop me if I'm going off track.
Well, we might take a quick deep
before we go down the recession.
I'm not putting you out because there's so much there I resonate with and it's quite similar to my story as well. And for friends listening, like, I hope in hearing that just because you don't know what it is you want to do doesn't mean that you don't end up on the right path and that as well. And for definite, I quite like the library. The Wi-Fi thing, you're not old, number one, but we're in Ireland right now, and I know we've got listeners from around the world as well, but I always say Ballstown, where I'm from in Westmeath, like, the Americans particularly don't get it, that like we literally, like, in the last 12 months, it's maybe a little over, but we literally just got landline broadband.
And I remember having to actually plug, had the little plug where it's like pinch it at the top and put it into the wall. The actual wire. That's the laptop.
That's it. So like I hear you where the library's like a space where you can get stuff done, and also, just as you say, set up and kind of be there. I would have done that a lot during like junior cert year. And that in Cashpotter Library. But what I'm also kind of hearing and like was me, I never really knew what I wanted to do. I never questioned like what I wanted to be or anything, but I never what I wanted to do other than teaching. It was just something that was a decision when I was little. And I know I've shared this like before, and that is part of my story, but like, my grandparents were my first students, so you come home after school and like you teach my granny as like the good girl, she'd be like Lauren Devine, and then my friend would be the bold boy that was the class ahead of me, and whatever else, and he'd be getting in trouble and my granny would be getting the stickers, so like, I think if you're in any way, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I kind of notice sometimes if you're in any way academic and kind of have that kind of service mentality of you want to help someone else, like that with the readathon and the little things for the kids. Sometimes it's kind of like, oh yeah, teacher, and a lot of people end up.
I think that is what it is. And also, like, the job I have now, actually, there is an element of teaching in it.
Sure.
Because I'm working, so there's a variety of roles you can have if you go into librarianship. You can end up in all sorts of fields, but I'm working in a college. So what I end up doing a lot of is teaching information literacy classes to people. So I am teaching a class, but it's not that that's what I do 9 to 5. You know what I mean? It's an aspect of what I do. But definitely I do like, and even just the idea of helping someone at the counter or something. You know what I mean? Like, I get the satisfaction of like, if a student comes to me And like, I recognize the chaos because I'm like, that used to be me. And they're like, I'm so stressed. I'm like, I don't know how to reference this. I was told I have to do it in Harvard. I don't know what that is. And all this kind of thing. Like, I love the whole idea of like explaining something to someone who's in a place where they're really confused. Like there's a tornado in their brain. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. I've got you. I can explain it. I can make things make sense. And then they go away and they're like, oh, thank you so much. That was really helpful. Yeah. And honestly, from my point of view, I've helped them do barely anything.
Yeah.
Like, half the time, all I've done is like shown them how to use reference management software or something. Yeah. But to them, it's like, oh, thanks. That really like, that saved me. You know what I mean? Because I was so stressed. So I like that aspect of it. I sometimes feel being a librarian, it's a wee bit like being a hairdresser or a bartender. Like, you know, in old movies where you've got the bartender cleaning the glass and they're listening to people's problems. Like there's an element of that. There's an element of it that's not so much the actual job I'm doing for the person, but just that I'm there in a moment where they're stressed and they need to be kind of calmed down, or just have a person who listens to them that cares. It's something like that. Because often the time, like what I'm helping them do is not much at all. It's like show them how to use the catalog or something. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you just type this in.
You just change it.
Then you find it there. And like, that's all I've done. Literally, I'm like, type it here and point at a screen. I'm like, that's really all I've done to them. But to them, they're like, oh, now, you know, so it's helpful to them. Yeah. So, and then they start telling me all about how stressed they are about their thesis or whatever. And I'm just there to listen. So sometimes I think there's an element of that. And I quite like that aspect of it. So.
I love that, Caroline. And it's the kind of thing where I think when I start to learn the lesson from mentors that above me of like, not how, who. So it's like, oh, how am I going to do this? It's like, well, who do I need to talk to? You know, and so like that, if I need to figure out Harvard referencing, I go to Caroline. But it's those tiny little nudges that seem so simple. So I use this, I'll probably get trouble for even saying this now, but this is my podcast, so let's be grand. For anyone listening, like that, I've been a teacher in home economics is my skilled area. And, you know, when you're a master of your area, as you are, you know, in librarianship, when you master one thing and people know that they can come to you for that area, you know, that you are the expert. So well, coming to Southside Dublin, and we're in Southside Dublin right now, my key frustration was always, how do they not know the difference between a tea towel and a J cloth? And after 5 years purely in Dublin schools, I finally cracked it this last autumn, just gone by, where so proud, so proud of me, but so proud of the girls that like I got to achieve in the 1 hour cookery class and that kind of thing. And I won't talk too much about that side of my life, but where it's like something really simple, like hot soapy water in a sink, and you put the dishcloth in the sink and use the tea towel to dry it, not the other way around. Can seem really basic, but that the feeling you get for me in the classroom always was, and still is, when you're having a conversation with someone, when they get that little aha of kind of,
exactly.
I get it now, and thank you so much. And it seems simple for us. So
if anyone is wondering about Harvard, I feel I should clarify.
Do tell us.
Harvard
please.
is technically an umbrella term. So Harvard refers to any inline citation style as opposed to a footnote style. Because a lot of people are asking me, how do I use Harvard? And they're looking for like a guidebook that's like the Harvard guidebook. There's no one Harvard guidebook, because technically it can refer to a multitude of styles. So for example, APA is one of the Harvard styles. So that's the American Psychological Association style. So it's inline. So in the sense that if you're writing your essay and then you have a quote by somebody and it's like Smith or whatever, Lauren Divine. So it's like you're in brackets, you'd have like divine, and then
I remember this now actually.
And then at the bottom of your essay, you'd have like the full reference in the bibliography.
That's right.
Or your reading
in your reference list.
Yeah. So you have either
trauma memories coming back up for me.
Anything reference and bibliography. If you read, even if you didn't reference it.
That's right.
But anyway, so technically there's no one Harvard style. It's a multitude of things, as opposed to a footnote. So Chicago footnote, for example, is where instead of in brackets, you've got the author and the details, the full details at the bottom. In the footnote style, you just have like the little number 1. And then at the bottom of that page, you've got the reference.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's the main difference. Harvard means inline style. Yeah, but there's no one guidebook to the definitive Harvard style. Sometimes colleges have their own variation on it. Like
I can't even remember.
I don't know. Institute of Technology has one.
I feel like we were an entity of our own. That's a whole other conversation.
But that's just in case anyone's listening and they're like, oh, I want to know about Harvard.
There you go, guys. There you go, friends. And you definitely know who to talk to, Caroline. Tell me, Caroline, so you mentioned there that you're working in an academic university and everything at the moment. How do you feel your current place of work suits all those aspects of the roads that it's brought you to in becoming a librarian, and also in kind of showcasing your skills that you have, those people skills, as well as obviously the academia side of things? And just, what's your day to day like? Because I know you really enjoy the college scene. So
I
what's
really
like
like the job I have now. So I've been through, like, so I was saying, the recession hits that night.
Yeah,
there was there was
just
just no like job advertisements for librarians at all. There was a moratorium on all the like public library positions, and it was really hard to crack into anything. So for years I was doing job bridge internships or just little short maternity cover posts and things like that, but no like permanent jobs. And I was bouncing around like that for years, which was stressful. But it meant that I got kind of like a taster, like a smorgasbord of various different like institutions and experiences from different places. The job I have now, though, I really, really like. I've been less happy in other jobs, but I don't want to name or shame any particular.
No, I understand that. Yeah.
But so let's just say there's some jobs I've had where I've been very happy, and then others where maybe I've been less happy. But the job I have now, I'm particularly happy.
And I think everyone listening can relate to that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not like a particular place, or particular people or anything like that. It's just something about it didn't add up into all of who I am. Yeah. At the end of the day, really. Yeah. So,
but where I am now is great. So what I am technically is a subject librarian. That's my title.
Good.
So there's a team of us called the subject librarians. I'm working at Trinity College, Dublin at the moment. So the subject librarians, essentially, we've all been assigned subjects. In my case, I have French, Italian, Hispanic studies, social work and social policy, Irish and Celtic studies, Near and Middle Eastern studies, and religion, theology, and peace studies.
Oh, wow, okay.
So for any of those subjects, it's kind of my responsibility to curate the collection partially, but also to be a person that a student from that subject area can come to for one-on-one advice. So if they're, say, struggling, like a lot of what I do is someone says, okay, I'm working on my capstone project, and I've been told I have to do a literature review, and I can guide them through how to approach their literature review. So that I deal with things like creating a research framework for your question, dividing it down, like using Pico or Spider or something. I don't know if you've used those, but that's essentially where you create. So whatever your question is, have a focused question. And then if you use a framework like Pico, that stands for population, intervention, control and outcome. So you're kind of dividing your question into sections.
Sure.
So, and then within each of your sections, you kind of come up with a strand of keywords, and then you bring your keywords to the databases. And then in the databases, then I do a whole tutorial on how to use the databases.
I can come with that.
What the difference is between subject headings and keywords and all that kind of thing. Because the databases can be a bit daunting if you're not used to them.
Sure.
And I have a mixture, I have a mixture of people who are just, say, so new to college they haven't used them yet. Or maybe there's someone who did their degree a few years ago when databases weren't maybe as widely used as they are now or something, and they're not familiar with the sort of digital aspect of it.
Sure.
So they're coming to me from that point of view, and they're like, well, I know how to do research, but I'm not used to this interface, this database. That's new to me.
That's it.
So it's just things like that. So once you get to grips with how to do an efficient search on a database to get the most relevant results, you'll find doing your literature search and your literature review a lot easier. So that's kind of what I'm there to do. So I'm not necessarily telling them what they should or shouldn't read, because that's what they have to do as part of their research. But I'm just guiding them in how to make the most of the resources available to them.
I love that.
So that's mostly what I do.
You're like a coach for library things.
Yeah.
We had a conversation on this season with one of the coaches I train with in the J. Shetty School, and she kind of spoke about that, about, and we both agreed that it's the same aspect of you're only bringing people. You're only the side passenger, you're only bringing people where they are already going, so you're just kind of giving them the right nudge. So
kind of, yeah. It's kind of like anything, like, I don't know, being a driving instructor. You don't drive the car for the person, but you tell them
100%.
when they should change gears.
Yeah, like I can't cook the dish for them as the teacher. For example, I just give them the recipe, the steps. So
so that's the day to day. But
nice then. Caroline is here in her wicked outfit.
I know, it's not intentional, but I'm wearing pink and green.
She's a lovely green. For friends listening, she can't see. She's in her lovely Irish green jumper, I'll call it even. And it's
Patrick's Day originally.
So
But,
theatre, when did
yeah,
theatre come into your life?
theatre for
Or...
me, so that kind of would have been, if you'd asked me when I was little, what's your dream job? I would have said, I want to be an actress, that would be.
Ah,
And I kind of, various reasons, why didn't I do that?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
partly my own self-consciousness and lack of self-belief. I guess it's like, well, I couldn't do that. It's fun to dream about it, but I wouldn't be good enough to do that. I wouldn't get there. And then partly, people would kind of put it down. Like I remember, but I don't want to go into. I feel get mad at me now if I think I'm blaming them. But
No.
I remember my dad saying things like, "Oh, it's very hard to become an actor. Most of them are just working as waiters and waitresses. You never get a real job." So there was this idea that it's like, well, I can't go into that field because I'll never get a real job. I'll just be someone who's bumming around and never actually working. But
just to say that, sorry to put across you, but just to say, I think with parents, and I know this from speaking to parents, I know this being the child of very thoughtful grandparents and my mom, a granddaughter and that. And yeah, as I say, then being the one trying to keep the student or whatever, and so on, kind of going. It's always the case of, and what I've come to learn, like, it's always the case of, they just want that security, like that human need of, are they going to be okay?
Yeah.
So, I hear you there, because I've seen it now.
Being a teacher. Like, that's great. You can work in the local school. You can work in the
Yeah. Same with me. Same with me.
The summer, it's a great job. Yeah.
Same with me.
But, but I think that shaped my mentality of why I felt like, well, it's not a realistic goal.
Yeah.
It's not something I can actually go for. I have to think of something that's more down to earth and more normal. But like, both my parents are actually amateur actors, so that's how I even got into it. Yeah, like, so they love acting. They loved me doing speech and drama. They loved me having it as a hobby. It was only any time I thought about, if I mentioned it at all at the dinner table, like the career prospect, I always felt that Dad was like, well, you'll never get a real job. But I feel like they'd probably, if I said that now, they'd be like, we never said that to you. We never told you couldn't do it.
No, I get that. We won't go too deep there.
Well, that's how I at the time felt.
I'd say there's a lot of friends listening who can relate to that too.
But anyway, I loved doing it as a hobby, but I just didn't see it as something that was realistic. I was like, no girl from Dundalk is going to be a Hollywood actress. I'm not going to be the next Julia Roberts. But actually, they totally could. I actually have a friend who's at the moment in the Old Vic, like doing a professional production. So a girl from Dundalk totally can become a professional actror.
Is it still something? Is it, or is that?
I'm kind of at a point now. So I reached a point where when I lived in Australia, I think living in Australia was great because it was the first time I had just been so far away from home. I might as well have been on a different planet. I was so far away. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's in a different time zone. I'm so far removed from everything. And I got used to, like, growing up in my hometown, people always know me as in reference to someone else. They're like, oh, you're Maeve's daughter. Oh, you're John's sister. You're Claire's cousin. Yeah. I was like, I was kind of just accepting of that. Like, but when I lived so far away that no one had any concept, no context for me, it was just like, oh, you're Caroline the Irish girl. And I was like, oh, okay, they just know me as me. Yeah. And I love that. That's why I love living in the city. I kind of love that, like, anonymity of just being, there's no preconceived idea of who I am. It's just, they just meet me and I am what I am. So I like that. But in Sydney, because I guess I was going through this whole self-exploration thing, I remember going to a career fair and there was a stand there and it was Screenwise College of Acting, film acting. And that's actually where a lot of the home and away actors train. So Chris Hemsworth trained there. And I signed up to do a course. Not at the time, no. He was doing 4 movies by that time.
Oh wow, okay.
But he had gone there. That was, even now, sometimes I get like an email from that. It's like, congratulations to alumni. Because I'm still on a mailing that goes to all alumni. But but I did a course there about film acting and stuff. And it was then that I started thinking, maybe I should have gone for this actually. But I was at that point, I'd already done a whole degree. I'd done my master's in librarianship. And I thought, like, what was I then, 23 going on 24? I was like, gosh, I'm middle-aged now. It's way too late. I should have done this years ago. So for a while, I had this struggle with this regret of like, oh, have I messed this up? Have I not gone for something because I didn't have the guts to go for it? And that should have been what I'm doing. But now I've invested so much into getting a degree as a librarian that I kind of have to follow that. So I did have a kind of a conflict where I was torn. But I remember I was living in Dublin, so skip ahead a few years. I'm living in Dublin and I decided to do the Gaiety School of Acting course because I'd loved the one in Australia so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the Gaiety School of Acting performance part-time in the evening, and I got really, really into it. And at that point, I was kind of thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm gonna go for it now. You know, this is where I'm gonna like, I don't know, become an actor or whatever.
Yeah.
But all of us who did the course, we got together, a big group of us from the course. We created our own theatre company called Black Box to Red Carpet.
That's right. I remember you telling me this actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we wrote some of our own stuff. So we just put on a kind of murder mystery play that we found called Death in High Heels, and that was our first production. We put that on it's actually the pub in Portobello, just there. Yeah, they have a downstairs area. So when we made the set was all just our own stuff that we collected. We had like an old desk. I found one of those those models for like dressmaking models.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So because we were all meant to be in a dress shop. So we just kind of put together our own set. And I remember just loving it because we were all doing all of it. We were being the actors, we were being the producers, we were being the directors, we got our teacher, John Delaney from the Gaiety School of Acting to direct it. And he was really supportive of us. Yeah. And it really felt at that time like, yeah, this is the beginning of something. We're like creating our own work and we're going to be huge. One person who did that Gaiety School actually has ended up doing a proper movie and doing the whole red carpet experience. He was in something that had Mel Gibson in it.
Oh, cool.
I can't remember the name of the film now, but I remember thinking, yay, someone actually made it to a proper red carpet. But for most of us, but I loved doing that. We used to meet up in a place one of the girls worked, and we would like meet up and share ideas for scripts and stuff. And myself and another guy called Chris wrote our own play. We put that on in Smock Alley. Nice. And that was a lot of fun. I loved that. And the writing experience was different for me. So I didn't star in it myself. I wrote it. And I was like behind the scenes. Yeah. And like at the first line where like it got a laugh, I remember just thinking, oh, like it was just, I hadn't even realized I was like holding my breath. Like, and then realized, oh my God, such relief. They like it. Oh my God. Like they're responding to it. So that was a great feeling. But I loved all that. And at the time I remember I was trying to juggle this idea of this new career in acting, and also at the same time trying to do a day job in a library. Yeah, I remember I was getting very tired because I was burning the candle at both ends. Yeah, I was rehearsing for something out here, so I was doing Mondays and Wednesdays were rehearsals here, Tuesdays and Thursdays were rehearsals with the Black Box Red Carpet. Just because it was our own group, I had to do all this fundraising and all this kind of stuff and booking the venue and all that aspect of it as well. And then I was trying to do this day job. And I had to get 2 buses to get out to where the day job was. Yeah. And I remember like a few times I was late. Yeah. And the boss picked me up on it and was like, I think you need to get your priorities straight. And in my brain, I was like, yeah, I do. I need to commit to the theatre. It's now or never. Which I don't think is what she meant. No, I know. You took in my brain, I was like, yeah, I do. So I was for a little while there. I was really going for it, and I got the odd time I got like an audition for an advert or something. So what happened? I got to a point where I was still pursuing both. I was doing the day job and this as a side gig. Sure. And then I remember COVID then hit in the middle of all that as well. But I remember I was on but even during COVID, we kept up. At that time, I was doing some stuff with Fire Door Theatre, and we did like Zoom phase and stuff like that. So I was keeping my hand in the drama, but not really making any particular professional progress. But I remember I went on holidays to France with a group of friends, and it was the first holiday any of us had gone on since the pandemic, and it was like this whole thing. Like we're going outside. But I remember kind of at that it was my birthday when I was on that holiday. And I remember having this like moment, like almost like an epiphany where I was like, no, I feel like I'm at this point now where if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. And I was like, maybe I'm okay with that. Maybe it's okay that it hasn't happened. And then so at one time I got offered, so it's, I don't know if I should mention the casting agency that was like, but anyway, I got offered, I was like, do you want to do an audition for a 6-part series that we'll be filming in London, whatever. And I was like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe this is my big break. Yeah. But at the same time, there was a job up here that came up, which was the job I have now in Trinity. Oh. And I was like, well, that's a really good librarian job. And then, so I was at this, like, I felt like I had this fork in the road. Yeah. And I was like, whichever one of these I get, I'm going to take that as a sign. Like, that's what I'm meant to do. So if I get the acting job, I have to go 100% for the acting. And if I get the librarian job. So obviously, I got the librarian job. But even just doing the audition, I did the audition for the 6-part drama series, and it was myself and my flatmate Laura. And we had in like a tripod that was just board games on an ironing board.
Yeah,
and my phone with like balance between 2 mugs.
Yeah.
And Laura was
see our setup,
yeah.
guys. We're working what we have. We have a tripod, to be fair, but
Laura was reading the other character, and I was doing the same. But even just doing that audition was so much fun.
Yeah.
In a way. I actually honestly enjoy just the process of auditions. It's not so much about the end product. But I just enjoyed doing the audition so much. But then, as it turned out, I got offered the permanent job in the library, and I was like, okay, well, this is it. But now that I've kind of stopped stressing out so much, I always had this idea that's like, oh, if I was at work, it was like this nagging feeling like I should be out there, I should quit my job, and I should just start auditioning or entertaining people in the street or something. But no, for sure. Hi, we're just doing a podcast.
How are you?
Sorry, if you want to be a woman, you can come on in.
No,
Is that Barry?
I just want to see Caroline.
Oh no, it's not. Sorry, Garrett. Yeah,
Oh, it's a lovely Lauren.
it is. It's myself. Kyle will edit this out. That's our podcast guy. You're okay. Yeah, sorry. That's what it's about. That's what it is.
But
Caroline, I'm going to jump in there
Yeah,
and just say, in all of that, there's so much of my story, and I know and friends listening, where we have those moments where it's like, is it this or is it that? And we kind of go one way or go the other, and we kind of go, okay, well that's the way my life is going now, you know. And yeah, kind of before we move forward with that a small bit, I just want to say as well that with the Gaelic School of Acting, I had that as well in the case of, so I only ever was going to be a teacher. That was kind of the only thing. But the only thing I liked to do was drama.
Yeah.
And I had that timeline as well where it was like, do I do this or do that? And my first offer was, my first choice I put down was drama theatre performance in Trinity, actually. And all I needed to do was get the points. I had gotten the interview, all that kind of thing. And the short version of that story is ultimately when I got it, I took the secure option because in the first round I didn't get it. And all that kind of thing, and then I went down the road of home ec later, and that's anyone who's ever heard me talk about that before. But I think what you say there, where you've times where you can just be, and also the things that you do that you enjoy the process of. There's a friend here, and he's actually part of the production we're working on at the minute, and I won't out him as such, but I know he loves auditions because it's just a case of like, oh yeah, well, you just go and you enjoy and you do it, and if you get it or you don't get it, you've enjoyed the opportunity. And I think anyone who's ever travelled, and myself speaking as the culture up here in South Dublin at the minute, and in different places like with Greece and in London and kind of somewhere in the States and that sort of thing, where you have opportunity to just go, hi, I'm Lauren, you know, and that's where Lauren Jean actually came out of. Because when I was in Greece, by the time I was in Greece, Lauren Jean was already on my social medias, and one side of that was protect myself professionally, teaching and that, but also because it got coined in London because there was like 4 Lauren D's, and with the company I was working with there, they couldn't have another Lauren D because it was like, well, how are we going to call her on the intercom, you know? So Lauren Jean kind of hit there, and there's a few other kind of fun stories with that and cute things. But yeah, I heard a lot of me and kind of what you said, and as I say, those paths, I know I've had a couple of moments in life where it's like, well, which am I going to do here? Am I going to travel, or am I going to settle? Is COVID going to kind of stop me here now, or is it going to be something that's going to propel me forward, you know? So
and I feel like I've got a good balance at the moment.
Yeah.
So I'm happy, like I like the day job I have and I love that I spend a lot of my evenings doing drama. So I'm still doing what I love, but now it's without this stress of feeling like any moment could be my big break. So I'm just enjoying it for what it is. Rather than this idea that like, I always had this kind of idea that I'd be doing a play and someone with like a fedora in a 1940s American accent would show up. Like, I like your style, kid. I'm going to make you a star. That was this idea. That's how I thought it happened. I didn't have a show reel or anything. I just had this idea that somehow I was going to get discovered. I don't know what I thought I was doing. But I'm at a point now where I'm like, if that did happen, I would totally embrace it.
Would you?
But I'm happy enough that I don't feel like, oh, I never went for it. I'm beyond the point where I feel that kind of regret of like, I should have worked harder for it. I should have gone for it when I was younger. You know what I mean? I'm kind of at a point now where like, you know what, if that does happen, brilliant.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't happen, I've got quite a nice career going in the library and I love doing this as a hobby.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like some of us even, you never know, because we were doing witness for the prosecution. We all got a morning segment on Ireland.
That's right. Yeah.
So you never know. You never know when you could suddenly get seen and something could happen.
For our listeners, as I say, we're very grateful here in the Middle Theatre, Dundrum, and the production at the moment is alongside Sandyford Little Theatre. I came around this part of the world with the Lally Players as another amateur group, and with the Gay School of Acting in kind of bringing out that side of me again, because it was always, as I say, something I didn't want to lose. I had that moment for a minute, so I was like, okay, what if I just follow this? And I can hear you where you're like, my day job is like, yeah, no, I'm going to go follow the other. And I'm actually doing that at the minute. So I'll let you know if it works. Yeah, there's great productions on here, and both from an fostering amateur drama groups and also professional productions that the Mill put on.
Yeah,
so
definitely come see something.
Yeah, I know you've worked here in different productions as such.
I've been in it, yeah, 3 times over the years.
Yeah, so it's not to say that like with that bad.
About the job I have now, is like my manager, for example, she's really supportive.
Yeah.
Like when I've told her like on
That's
the day, she's like, "Oh, great, tell me when it's on. Like I'll come see it." You know what I mean?
Sure.
And sometimes
I think you mentioned that actually during
and that's great. Yeah, because like I don't know, I've worked in other jobs where like you mention you're in if there's something they're a bit like, "Oh, is that going to take up a lot of your time?" You know, and they don't like it.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that people are supportive of that.
Yeah.
And actually, even it feeds into my day job. Then they wanted someone to do TikTok videos to promote things.
Yeah.
They were like, "Caroline, you'll do it because you have drama experience." So it's actually nice to have that side of me appreciated rather than seen as something that conflicts with my day job.
Yeah.
Like it's something that I can incorporate into my day job.
For definite.
So I like that actually, which is good.
Caroline, I have a question for you. It's something I've been asking everyone who comes on, and it kind of came up naturally there a little while earlier. I was like, oh, that's the right time to ask Caroline now.
I didn't shut up.
That's why we're here. We're here to share. How do you deal with stress?
Oh Jesus, I'm probably not a very good person to ask about that. I'm always stressed. I'm always anxious.
Do you feel always stressed?
I'm always anxious and stressed about something. Yeah. I don't know how I deal with it. Badly, probably. I'd like to say, yeah, I drink lots of water and I go on long walks and I do meditation. What I do is stress out and think I should be doing something. I should do meditation to calm down.
Let me rephrase it maybe if it helps. Where are you the least stressed then? If you don't have a stress management plan, which is like a lot of people don't.
Yeah, this is probably my happy place, I'd say. When I'm out in Dundrum doing drama, I think that's where I'm happiest actually. I think that's
more so than the books, or are they kind of equal powering for you? Or
yeah, probably the drama. I think actually. I always feel happy here. I don't know. I always feel good. So, I don't know. At work, I'm kind of in work mode, so I'm just thinking about tasks.
I hear you.
When I'm out here, I know it's different. It's a freeing kind of
for definite
place, and it's all. I just associate this mostly with positive experiences, you know. So I like it out here. I don't know. I don't know how I deal with stress. I need advice. I need to listen to the podcast to see what everyone else answers. I'm not good at dealing with stress at all. God, I don't know.
You rehearsals and that sounds like an action.
Yeah. I guess I go for a walk. That's what I try to do.
Yeah.
To deal with stress, if there's time. But even at the moment, I feel like I've loads of plates spinning. I've all these different things I'm meant to be focused on. So I'm trying to prioritize. Like part of me is like, just get my job, just focus on my work. Don't let that fall apart. There's another part of me that's like trying to focus on, say, drama rehearsals and stuff. It's like, I need to make time for that. There's another part of me that's I'm actually very late in life trying to pass my driving test. There's a part of me that's trying to focus on, getting that. Like I need to make time for driving lessons. I need to do that. There's a part of me that's looking into the process of mortgage approval.
Oh, yes.
And that's stressful. And
particularly these days.
Yeah. My dad he's on to me all the time on the phone. Like, have you time now to look at that form? Have you time now to deal with this? And I'm trying to explain, no, I don't have time. And sometimes it's not even, I don't know, it's like I'm not physically doing something right now, but I'm spending energy worrying about something else. So I can't focus on it right now. I need to focus on this first. But at the moment, I do feel like I've kind of got a lot of plates spinning, and I don't know which one to focus on first.
I hear you.
And then even just honestly, for me, it's even just like my brain is just this constant list. It's like you should clean up. You need to tidy the kitchen table. You need to wash the bathroom. You need to do this. You need to go on your driving lesson. You need to get ready for work. You need to eat something. It's like you need to go to Dundrum for the rehearsal. Like it's just this list of things, like pop-up notifications in my brain, and I'm like, I don't know which one to do first. So yeah,
I love that analogy. Sorry,
I'm an absolute mess. I'm not the person to ask you for stress stress points at all.
But can I do for you like what you can explain to our listeners about the Harvard referencing, if that's okay? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people right now who can 100% relate to that, and I can relate to that. So this entrepreneurship world, I very much, my brain goes that way too. Of I need to do podcasts, I need to reply to emails, I need to be somewhere, I need to eat food. I'm always forgetting to eat food. You know, that kind of, we're getting better the last couple of years, guys. We're making progress, all good. But or call this person back and all that kind of thing. So one thing that really I have a love-hate relationship with is my calendar. And if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So maybe for anyone listening, that like if it lands, and maybe for you, Caroline, maybe it won't land, but I can just share, like in my story, it's the kind of case where, okay, what's the one thing I have to prioritize? And when I was losing the weight first, like for me, working with Coach, and I'll talk about that journey again, but working with Coach, with Jay Farrell, Achieve Fitness 365, but it was the kind of thing where you have to lock in a time with them to know that you're going to get to train. So, okay, there's one thing that has to happen. It has to happen at this time. And that was the first grounding point. Same way as you have to be at work at a certain time, you know. So, and then from that, and I say that because from that, it got to the point where work was becoming more of a priority at different timelines, or I was trying to get home to Westmeath, and that would kind of like block out a day or 2 days. So that would affect training, all that kind of thing, where suddenly then the calendar was important again. And it was important for the first time really since school, of like those timetabling kind of days, or those extracurriculars that you do, or having that hobby or whatever it might be, when you had a lot more structure. I started to kind of find a self-structure of, I have to book at these things. And I would even purposely sometimes put in my calendar like Lauren admin. And what I mean by that is like tidy the word over, whatever it is. And find little things. But I hear you on a constant list, for definite.
I used to try and write timetables for myself. That was something. When I was at school, I was actually a nun that's at this church. So I write out like a little timetable. So I would literally.
Where did you go to school?
June Louis in Dundrum.
Okay.
Which she told me, like, so I would literally plan things out, like 9 a.m. to 9:50, do this. 9:15 to 9:30, do this.
And how did you find it?
Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I felt like I needed buffer time in all of it.
Same.
Like even for coming here, I'd be like, okay, I have to meet Lauren at 4. That means I have to do it at 3, so I have to wash my hair. And I'd be like, and then it's like, and then I need to eat something, and then I take the bins out. And like so I'm writing like a little plan. So it's literally like a little schedule. But there's nearly always then it's like you go over time on one thing. So you're just like, I've dedicated a half hour to this. I have to sacrifice that. That's not getting done because I don't know. But I don't do that as much anymore. I think I kind of, it worked for me when I was a teenager, I think, more so than now. But
I like to bucket things. Because I find that too. Anything I'm like doing, I'm like, okay, let's add an extra 15 minutes onto that, because it's definitely something's gonna happen. And I like to bucket things where I go, here's a window, and I always leave buffer time. You know, anyone who knows me, I was actually thinking about this. I got a Butler's mocha. You saw me. It's my first kind of chocolatey thing. Christmas drink of the season. And I was actually thinking about this as I was walking back over to the Lewis, and that buffer time. It's like, I know I probably frustrate people in how relaxed things can be, but I've just learned to keep that approach, because I naturally can get very anxious, and I think I mask it very well. But I don't deal well under pressure, so don't put me under stress, because I'm stressed enough as it is. So I like to kind of take things. Obviously, if a show starts at 7:30, you have to be ready for 7:30. True. You know, but like in the process of getting ready for that, you can allow yourself kind of that window. And I don't think we'll solve it all now, but it's fun to explore. And as I say, you mentioned there with walks and stress management. One of my stress management keys was, and still is, if I start to think too much, I put on the runners. I try and make sure the runners are on me so that I can go, kind of go at any time if I need to. But I'll put on the runners, put in the earphones, and I'll go and listen to a podcast. And I'm a whole different person by the time I'm back. And if I don't have the brain space to listen to a podcast, I just throw on the music. And again, things are a little different by the time.
I do manage, like, I feel like if you met me at work, because I feel worried now because it's sort of related to jobs, people will watch this and think she sounds like a disaster.
Not a bit. We just heard how efficient you are with all your
but I feel like at work, I managed to come across as very calm and organized. Most of the time. But I feel like I put so much work into what I kind of call my customer service face. You know what I mean? So by the time I get home from that at the end of the day, it's like, oh God, like I can't do it anymore. I kind of have to unmask, like, but at work, I put so much energy into it though, but it takes energy to come across as very calm, because I have to be calm. Like, so like if a student or somebody is stressed about something, I can't be like, I know what you mean. It's terrible. I have to be kind of like, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Just do this. Just do that. This is easy to find. I'll order that book for you, or what, you know what I mean? So I come across that way at work. But I think then at some point I need to let it all unravel.
I know there's a lot of people, myself included, I know that a lot of people like at different points in their journey, or maybe right now, that is the case for. So thanks for talk about that.
I don't know if that's too honest. I'm worried now.
Exactly what we need to hear.
I feel like, I don't know, in case people are watching this and want to know about becoming a librarian, I feel like we should talk more about that.
Please, that'd be great.
Because I know you were asking me before, like, do you actually need the qualification to work in a library?
I did actually, because it was something like, I think one of those notions somewhere in college, I was like, oh yeah, I can just work part-time in a library, and then everyone's like, no, you need to be a PhD, and I'm like, oh, okay.
You don't need a PhD, although you can do a PhD in information studies, and sometimes I've been tempted to do one, but there's so many things on my list already. I don't know, I'll put that one near the back. But so what I'd say is that you don't have to have the qualification yet to have your first job in a library.
Okay.
But I think it's good to maybe be working towards it if you actually want a long-term career. So you could start somewhere with just a shelving job or something, or even get even a weekend job, maybe in a public library or something, and kind of work. Maybe they just want you to do something like shelving or stamping in the back, or maybe they want you to just do something like with the children's activities or something.
Sure.
But if you kind of start there, and then kind of maybe, like, actually a lot of workplaces will sponsor someone to do the qualification.
Oh, cool.
So I know a lot of people who got a job in, say, a public library or another library, and then their manager sponsored them to do the qualification. And then when it comes to the qualification itself, so the thing is, I'd say, because I feel like even when you asked me that question before, there was two other people in the room who kind of answered for me and went, no, you don't need a qualification to work in a library. The thing is, you can start your career without the qualification, but it's not that the qualification has no meaning.
Sure.
I think it is important to have the skills. So while maybe at the moment the qualification isn't an option because you don't have the money to pay for it, or you don't have the time to do it, or whatever it is, it's not that it's a worthless qualification. You do learn a lot when you're doing that qualification, and there is specific skills that you need if you want to be a professional librarian. So it's all to do with so things like what would you call it, like managing a collection, classifying things, cataloging things. That's one aspect of it. A lot of then there's rare book handling. If you want to go into that aspect of it, that's a whole skill where you have to learn.
A friend of ours has done that kind of work before.
And then what I focused on a lot was information behavior, which was how people interact with information, because that interested me. So I did a whole thesis on that. But it's kind of, well, I did at the time, Twitter was a relatively new concept. So I did a whole thesis on how people share information on Twitter.
Love it.
But it's kind of the psychology. It's sort of date now. Twitter's not even a thing anymore. But it was kind of, it was the psychology of, like, say, if someone wants a piece of information, for some people, they prefer to ask a friend because, like, well, I trust my friend. So if they give me that information, I know it's accurate because my friend wouldn't lie to me. Other people feel like they trust a piece of information if they Google it because they're like, well, the internet can't be wrong. So, so there's different ways of learning. Some people, if they're going to assemble a wardrobe or something, they like to read the instructions. Some people prefer to have it explained to them by another person. And some people prefer like an image, kind of visual based instructions.
See, I wouldn't trust the other person, not for love nor money. I could love you, know you,
Yeah.
like trust you, like. But if you're telling me instructions how to do something, like great, give me the manual.
Yeah.
Like, you could be
So-
reading the same thing to me. I need to see it. I actually recently, sorry, I actually recently have been like trying the sleep look.
Yeah.
And I took out the hairbrush out of the packet, and the first thing I did was read the back of the packet to how to use a hairbrush. Sorry for the language, but like it's a hairbrush, you know. So sorry, I just had to share that.
Yeah, but there's so you can do as an undergraduate, you can do information systems for an arts degree. So you could have that and then you're qualified. You could do a diploma. So there's like level 6, level 7, level 8, and then there's the masters. There's MLIS, which is what I did, Masters in Librarian Information Studies, and that's basically the same as the diploma, except that you do a thesis at the end. And then I know a lot of people who actually do it online. So they'll do it part-time online through a college that's maybe based in the UK or somewhere, and they'll be working on their assignments. And you can do it over a year or over 2 years. So there's lots of different avenues. If you want to get the qualification, there's options for doing it. 2 of the places that do it in Ireland are UCD, and the other place is Dublin Business School.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I don't know if since I last looked into it, if other schools have opened up.
Sure.
But at the time, those were the 2 places you could do it. Certainly in Dublin anyway. But yeah, so I think the qualification is worthwhile because I think sometimes there's this idea from people who don't appreciate what librarians do.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, sure, that's a nothing job. That's a job where you're just dossing, you're standing behind a counter reading a book and every so often you stamp something. That's not what it is. It's to do with information collection. It's to do with digital literacy, understanding the bias of sources. And, you know, it's all that kind of thing.
And as you say, when someone comes up to you with a very specific question, they need you to know the answer. So
or to at least help them find the resources that has the correct answer. But it's a lot to do with assessing your sources and, you know, that kind of thing, particularly if you're doing, say, a literature review or if you're doing a systematic review. That's the whole thing. Now, systematic reviews is a big thing. So a systematic review is where you'd have maybe 2 to 4 different people working on reviewing the literature for a big project, and you have to very thoroughly look at everything and then cross-check with each other. But there's all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of technicality in it.
I'm sure.
And you need to have a lot of good computer skills. Like most people have some sort of qualification in web design or something as well, along with, you know, the librarian, traditional librarian modules. But so there's merit in the qualification. So what I'd say is like, it's not that the qualification has no, it definitely has merit. But if you're someone who doesn't yet have the qualification, but you know you really want to work in a library, then you can still answer that calling, you know, and you can still start the journey and look into getting the qualification at some other time.
I love that. Yeah. How can we answer the call? For sure.
And I've had so much fun. I'm after learning so much. I have so many more questions. Before we wrap, let's just kind of say, if you could say anything, and let's look forward. If you could say anything to the Caroline of 5 years from now. Let's look for, because we've kind of dove into a good bit of the story in that there, and I can relate so strongly, and I'm sure listeners can as well. What's she doing, or what's?
I guess I'm hoping.
What would you love to say to her?
I don't know. I'm hoping a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'd like to be living out here because so I'd love to be still engaged with amateur drama as my hobby.
Okay.
And I'd like career-wise, I guess I'd like to be still working in Trinity because I really like the job that I'm in now. So I guess continue to build the kind of on the career ladder that I'm on.
Sure.
So if I'm not still a subject librarian, maybe to have gotten maybe a more managerial role or something.
Yeah.
But I hope I'm still engaged with the students. The more managerial you get, the less you're engaged with the students, but I love being engaged with the students.
I hear you.
So I guess, I don't know. I would, hopefully I'll be calmer and have figured out how to manage stress.
Sorry, I didn't mean to like.
I guess I'm hoping, for a long time, I guess I felt a bit, I don't know, like the ground was gone. Have you ever done dance aerobics?
No.
Okay, so in dance aerobics, what they tell you is do a basic step. So you do your little basic step where you're going on the step. There's a little step.
Okay.
You go up and down on the step. And then they add in more kind of complicated moves.
Yeah.
They always say at the beginning of the class, if at any point something is too much for you, like you can't do the move, go back to the basic step until we get to the next bit of the routine where you can join in. So the idea is that you don't stop, you just have your basic step.
I love that.
But I felt for a long time, like in life, I didn't have my basic step. Like I was tripping over just the basic step.
Yeah.
And I was like, until I get the basic step, I can't do anything else. Like I felt like until I have a proper stable job, I can't worry about buying a house. And until I have this, I can't worry about dating. Until I have this, I can't, so I hope that in 5 years' time, I feel that I have my basic step down and that I'm building on the more complicated steps.
Oh, Caroline, I love that analogy. Can we go dance aerobics?
We should go dancing.
We actually really
It's actually a lot of fun.
Let's do that.
I used to do fencing, and then I when I did fencing, I used to look across in the other room. They were doing dance aerobics.
So
And I was
I want to be in that room.
They seem to be having a lot of fun. There's dance music. I kind of want to go over there.
Let's go into that room.
Yeah.
Caroline, I love that. We actually are going to do this.
And ice skating.
That I want to go now. Our director told us afterwards, because I have a habit of breaking toes and everything else. For the ice skating, for definite. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you'll come back on again. And
Hopefully, yeah.
I know
this was helpful to somebody out there.
for sure. I've learned a lot. Like I genuinely, I think we could talk another easily. I have so many more questions as well. And if you're open to come back on, it'd be great.
Yeah. If there's a part 2.
Yeah. 100%. Guys, thank you for listening. Thanks for having Caroline, and we'll leave it there for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, friend, for listening to the Thinking of Me podcast. I hope you found something within our story today that lands for you. You can keep up with us on Thinking of Me blog, Thinking of Me coaching, and Lauren Jean on socials. Go to thinkingofmecoaching.com/checklist for your checklist for self-fulfillment. Until our next chat, talk soon, my friend.